Hey guys, it's Kimberly from Many Meadows Farm, and today this video is going to kind of go over briefly just a little bit of everything that you need to know when you are getting into the wonderful world of goats. So goats have become extremely popular lately, and I totally understand why, because they're amazing and I love them and they're super cute, but they're also so much more than that. And I think that there's kind of a common misconception that maybe they're a little bit like dogs, and you keep them like dogs, but they're nothing like dogs. And I just kind of want to go over just what you kind of need to know as far as shelter, fencing, food, different vaccinations, minerals, just things that a lot of people just kind of don't know that you would have to do for a goat that you wouldn't do for a regular, more domesticated animal. So first and foremost is that goats are herd animals. And what that means is you don't want to just get one goat. It's not good for them. They get depressed, and a lonely goat is a loud goat. They act up, they jump on your cars, they'll want to escape fencing because they're lonely. I think that a lot of people think that if they, give them extra love and keep them around their kids or their other pets, that they'll be okay, but they know the difference. They're not stupid, and they want to be around others like themselves. So we always recommend that you at least get 2 goats. So whether that be a doe and a wether, 2 wethers, depending on if you're wanting to breed or not. And for those of you that don't know, a wether is just a billy, a buck, a male that has been castrated. That's a wether. And a doe is a female, and a buck or a billy is a male that can breed. So there are actually over 200 domesticated breeds of goats, but what we're gonna kind of be talking about today is basically just keeping a pet goat. If you want to go more into breeding or doing meat goats, or for dairy or fiber, that's kind of a different thing, and we can go over a couple of those. Not raising meat goats though. We'll go over the other stuff in later videos. But today I just want to kind of talk about the basics of keeping basically pet goats. All right, another important thing is you need to make sure that you can actually even have the goats. A lot of city ordinances don't allow goats in town, or certain HOAs don't allow farm animals in your housing neighborhood. So you need to make sure that you check. You don't want to get a goat and then find out later that you're not allowed to have it. And you could just call the city or check with your HOA. And also, if you kind of live in a more tight-knit neighborhood, you kind of maybe want to check with your neighbors. Maybe have like a little talk with them, because goats can be loud. They can be noisy, and you don't want to have some angry neighbors. Or maybe you do. Maybe you don't like your neighbors, and that's the perfect way to get back at them. I don't know. So basically, just make sure and check that you're even allowed to have your goats before you go and purchase goats, and then realize that you can't even have them. Okay, then we're gonna go over shelter. So first and foremost, goats hate getting wet. They don't like to be wet. They don't like their feet to get wet. You definitely want to get a place to keep them dry. They don't like the wind. Just kind of a good shelter for them. And you definitely need to keep it clean. How often you clean your shelter kind of depends on how many goats you have. But if you don't keep it clean, you're going to end up with parasites and diseases and fleas and lice and all kinds of horrible things. So in order to keep your goats healthy, keep their shelters clean. Also, you want to have proper ventilation. When it comes time to clean, it just kind of depends on how many goats you have. We have several goats, and I clean it, clean it at least once a month. And when I do, I clean out all the shavings. I use a bleach water mix. I put some lime down. You can put some diatomaceous earth down, but then make sure you put your shavings on top of it, and that kind of helps with some of the smaller fleas and parasites and stuff. Some good bedding to use is just some straw. You can use some horse stall shavings, but you want to make sure that you use the pine and not the cedar. Cedar's actually not good for the respiratory system. And you know, you really don't have to spend a ton of money at first if you're trying to get a shelter. I mean, I've seen just about everything used as a shelter. I've seen a truck camper shell that they put straw bales around the bottom and put the shell on top. It's actually kind of neat. Like, you could open the little windows and stuff. It's a little not as eye appealing, but it works. You can use an old shed and convert it into a little shelter. I mean, we were lucky when we moved out to this place. We had a big shop slash, you know, it had dirt floors in the back, and that's kind of what we converted into our goat shelter. And it's great because it has good ventilation and it keeps them completely dry, out of the elements. You know, in the wintertime, we do put heating lamps in there for the little ones, the babies, until they get, you know, a little bit more stable. Also, with the goat shelter, we make sure that it has good closing doors so that it can keep the predators out at night. So every evening we let our goats out to graze, and then at nighttime we lock them up and so that they're safe and no coyotes or anything can get to our little babies, especially because they're the most vulnerable because they're tiny. Windproof, predator-proof, waterproof, and keep it clean. That's what you need as a shelter. And obviously, you know, put extra straw down to keep it warm in the wintertime. Now, we do use heating lamps for our new babies, but we only do that for a few days until they're a little bit more stable. You don't want to use heating lamps all the time, because if you use heat lamps all the time, then they're not going to be able to keep themselves warm. They're not going to have that their extra winter coat under there. They're not going to develop it because they're not going to see the need to. So you definitely want to not use your heat lamps all the time so that they can get that thick, heavy coat and keep themselves warm whenever there's not heat. Say the electricity went out and you're unable to use your heat lamps, your goats are going to freeze to death because they're so used to being warm. So you don't want to spoil them with the heat lamp. Just, you know, like I said, for the babies, they're new, they're vulnerable, you want to keep them warm, but don't do it for a super long period of time. Just a few days until you could tell that they're healthy and they're good to go. Then you know, wean them off the heat lamp. Okay, so next is fencing. When it comes to goats, fencing is so important. Don't wait until you get a goat and then be like, oh, we'll do the fence later. Because that's what we did. And it was horrific. We spent all this money on landscaping and, yeah, well, we've got twigs out there now. It's a mess. As far as fencing goes, if you've got barbed wire fence out there, I mean, for cows or horses, it's not going to work for goats. So you're going to have to get a certain kind of fencing. You want to make sure that the holes are big enough that the babies can't fit through. You can use cattle panels if you've got bigger goats, but if you plan on breeding, then you definitely want to get the smaller holes. We actually used horse fence and it's amazing. Our goats are miniature, so they're not very tall, so we're not super worried about them jumping the fence like I know a lot of other goats do. So it's worked out perfect for us. It's really strong and we've invested a lot of money into it and we're doing it all ourselves, but it's a lot of money and it's a lot of work, but it's completely worth it because you get it done and you're not spending all this time patching fence constantly and constantly chasing your goats back in or losing them to something that was able to get to them. So you definitely want to invest in some good, solid fencing. And if you live in an area that has bigger dogs, or if you yourself have bigger dogs, you really want to try to keep your goats away from them. I don't really think that it's all the time that dogs just hate goats. I think honestly that dogs just want to play with them and they end up mauling them to death. And I think this is kind of a surprise to a lot of goat owners because they get their goats and then they come out and they've been mauled to death by their dog, and it's extremely heartbreaking. The best dogs to keep with your goats, and we actually invested in 2 Great Pyrenees and they were raised with goats and they are amazing. They literally, wherever the herd goes, that's where they go. They sleep during the day mostly, and then at night they just bark around the entire perimeter of our land and keep everything away. We haven't had any issues with predators since we've gotten them, and they're extremely gentle with our goats. And I think probably that was the best investment that we've made so far besides the fencing. is the dogs, and it just gives you that peace of mind that you know that they're going to be okay. There's times whenever I can't get home right at dark, and I used to just freak out because, I mean, predators come out as soon as the sun goes down, and now I have a little bit of peace of mind knowing that we have the dogs here and that I've got a little bit more time that I can get the goats in their house and locked up so that they're safe. And another thing I've seen on a lot of these groups that's extremely heartbreaking for first-time new goat owners is they will put collars on their goats or try to tether them or, you know, put them on a rope or a chain, and basically they get hung up and they hang themselves, or it's just a free-for-all for a dog or a coyote or any kind of predator to just, I mean, they can't run away, or they get tangled up and they can't get to their food or their water, and it kills them. Or they leave the collars on and they get their necks hung up somewhere else and they choke to death and die. So you definitely do not want to put a collar on a goat or tie it up. You can put collars on goats to lead them around, but you want to take it off immediately, because I don't know what it is about goats, but if there's a way they can get hurt or tangled up or caught in something, they're going to figure it out. They just do. I can't tell you how many times like we found them just stuck in weird places, and I'm like, why? What were you even trying to get at? What are you even trying to do here? But so just putting a collar on them is just an extra way for them to get stuck and to try to kill themselves. So don't put collars on them. Don't leave collars on them, and don't tie them up. Well, I've got a visitor. Someone was banging at the door, so I decided to bring him in. He's a little rotten, just like Opal. He's a little spoiled, and that's okay. This is Brody. Say hi, Brody. Say hi, Bobo. He literally is completely rotten. He was my bottle baby for a little while because his mama wasn't able to produce enough milk, so he thinks he's allowed to come on in the house anytime he wants to, and he likes to be held like a baby all the time, which is fine with me, completely fine with me. So on to the next subject, food. A lot of people ask, what do you feed your goats? And despite popular belief, goats cannot and do not eat everything. You really want to make sure that you are feeding them the right things. Goats are foragers, and that just means that they go out and they find the food that they need. It looks like they eat everything, but really goats just kind of like to nibble on stuff and just try things out. As far as feed goes, goats cannot survive on just feed alone. They need hay, fresh prairie hay. You don't want to just give them alfalfa hay constantly, especially if you have wethers or bucks, because it can make them sick and give them kidney stones. It causes complications in males if they have too much calcium. Or sweet feed. Sweet feed is actually tossed in molasses, and it's not good to just give them straight sweet feed. When you're getting a good goat food, just kind of read on the bag how much they suggest that you give your goats, and just kind of go by that. So goats have what you call a rumen, and basically it's like cows, and in order to keep their rumens functioning, they need roughage. Roughage is what they go out and they find, or in hay. So just giving them feed alone, it's going to upset their rumen and cause it to not work properly. So you definitely want to make sure that you get them roughage. You cannot just give them feed, because they're not like dogs. You can't just give them like how you would give a dog food. You can't just give goats feed. They need hay or roughage. Also, your goats will act like they're starving to death all the time. They're not. As soon as they hear the bucket or the feed, they're gonna act like they have never ate a day in their life. Don't believe them. They are lying to you. If you give goats all that they want and just let them have a free-for-all when it comes to their feed, they will literally eat themselves to death. They will get bloat and will die within 24 hours. So that's why it is crucial to make sure that you put your feed up in a place that they can't knock it over or get into it, because they literally will just sit there and eat until they kill themselves. So we actually use an old ice chest, and it works. I mean, it was supposed to be just temporary, but it works really good. But you can get, a stainless steel bin, and that works amazing. You can put bungees over the top so they can't knock it over, and then mice can't get in it. So that works great. But like I said, temporarily for now, using an old ice chest works wonders. It works amazing. So another important thing is you do not want to feed your goats on the ground, even their hay. You need to put their hay in a hay feeder and their grain in a grain feeder. Goats are very susceptible to parasites, and by feeding them on the ground, where their doo-doo is, it actually can give them all kinds of parasites and cause them all kinds of problems. It gives the kids something called coccidiosis, which is a parasite that gives them diarrhea, and if untreated, it can kill them. And a lot of it can be avoided by just keeping their shelters clean, keeping their hay up off the ground, and keeping their feed in a feeder. Just keep it clean, keep it off the ground, keep it out of their poopy. There's all kinds of feeders that you can buy. We've made our own. We made our own hay feeder just using a cattle panel, and I just had Blake make me a new grain feeder. Now, because we've had goats for a minute, I know how goats do, and they like to poop in everything. They'll just poop in their own water, and they'll poop in their own food thing. So when we created our wooden feeder, I had him do a little swing door, so that way I could take a little mini broom and just sweep it all out, spray a little bleach solution over it, and get it clean and sanitized and kill any kind of bacteria that was caused by them going poop in it. Okay, so next we'll talk about watering your goats. Goats need fresh water. They are notorious for, like I said, pooping in their water, and they're also notorious for not touching their water if it's dirty. Like, then why did you poop in it? So you want to change out their water. We actually probably have to do ours about twice a day, but we use smaller waterers on the inside, so it's easy to just dump it out, fill it up. Just do it in the morning and do it at night. Just the cleaner you keep things, I keep emphasizing keeping stuff clean. The cleaner you keep things, the healthier your goats will be. You don't want to let their water get dirty. For one, they won't drink it and they'll just get dehydrated, and then that alone will make them sick. Okay, well, Brody has left the building. He, I guess, got hungry and went and found his mama. So what I was saying was water tanks. Keep them clean. If you have bigger water troughs for your other animals, just put some cinder blocks or some rocks in the bottom of it if your babies fall in, to kind of keep them from drowning. We actually created a ramp for one of ours, and that's worked pretty good. Actually seen it in action where one of the bigger babies fell in and just went right back out. So we know it works. Also, you don't want to use 5-gallon buckets. You can get the smaller ones, 5-gallon buckets. The babies will jump in and drown as well. So that's all for basically the water tanks and watering your goats. Keep it clean, don't let it be deep for babies so they don't drown. Simple. You're gonna need to get your goats a good mineral, just a free choice mineral that you put out, and they'll take it when they want it. We actually usually put ours with a baking soda beside it. Baking soda also helps if they have a tummy ache. You don't want to put their minerals top dress it on their food, because they don't always need it. They know when they need it, and they'll get it when they need it. You don't want to use mineral blocks, because unlike cows that have rough tongues, goats have soft tongues, and they're not able to get what they need off of a mineral block. So we just use loose minerals, free choice, set it out, they get it when they need it. You don't want to get minerals that are meant for sheep, because sheep, they can't have copper, it actually kill them. Copper is essential for goats. They need it to help be more parasite resistant, helps with their coats. It's just super beneficial for them. They need it, and sheep mineral does not have it. But if you also have sheep, you want to make sure that you don't give your sheep your goat mineral, because it will kill sheep. So just a good mineral that has plenty of copper and selenium. Just read the bag. As far as goat health and emergencies, you want to make sure that you have already found a good vet. Don't wait until the last minute. Don't wait until you need them. Make sure you got the number for a good goat vet. Not all vets take goats, so make sure that it's one that is familiar with goats. Also, you want to make sure that you've got a good goat emergency kit. That's got, some blood stopper, some bandages. I'll put a list on the screen. Your goats are gonna need to be wormed, they're gonna need vaccinated, and they're gonna need their hooves trimmed. You can't just let go and let God with goats. You're definitely going to need to make sure that they are wormed regularly and that they have the proper vaccinations, and you're gonna have to check their feet, make sure that they stay trimmed and good to go, especially if they don't have a lot of land to roam on to kind of wear their hooves down. You're gonna have to check them, make sure that they're okay and whether or not they need trimmed. You can hire a goat farrier. They'll come out for about $40 and trim your goat hooves, or you can do it yourself. And I will go into more detail on trimming your goat hooves and how you vaccinate your goats, what you need to vaccinate them against, how you deworm your goats, and what kind of, the medicines that you'll need to do all that. What else? Oh, also, I'll go into how you know whenever your goats are sick and the things to look for to know the difference between a healthy goat and a sick goat, or a goat that's got parasites, or just all the signs to look for if your goat is not doing too well. Okay, so last but not least, hold on. Let me just show you what goat life is like. This is how nosy these goats be. Hey girl. Literally. So the last thing that I want to go over just briefly, we already talked about it a little bit, and that is predators and how to keep them away. Depending on where you live, you're going to have different kind of predators that are going to want to get after them goats. Motion lights, good guard dogs. Like I said, there's all kinds of livestock guardian dogs. We have Great Pyrenees, there's Anatolian, there's a ton of different ones. Look them up online. They're great. Ours have been absolutely amazing. If you live super rural like we do, just being present, you could put a radio on out in the barn, walk your land, just get your scent out there, let them know humans are around. Okay, so that pretty much wraps it all up. I hope that that was beneficial for you guys and you learned some stuff. Like I said, just stay tuned, and I'm gonna do separate videos on pretty much everything that we talked about. I just wanted to kind of make sure that I hit everything in a not too long video. So just stay tuned. Like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to keep up with all these videos, and we'll go over, like I said, the health and hoof trimming and medical kits, and we'll go over the birthing. We'll go over everything individually, but I just didn't want to do it all in this one video. If you have any other questions, put it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them the best that I can. Like I said a million times, I am not a professional. I just know what I know, and this is what works for us. So if you guys have something better that works for you guys, let me know, and maybe we'll try it out. All right, well, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. You guys have a blessed day, and stay tuned for more of our videos.